With the first pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Carolina Panthers select
Trophy Chase, Tucson, Arizona.
With the second pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Houston Texans select
Cody Smith, Houston, Texas. The fantasy draft room is now on the clock.
Welcome to the Fantasy Draft Room. I am Chase. With me, as always, my man Cody. What is going on tonight?
And we just brought you the AFC East in the last video, and now we have to go to the AFC West. No, not the AFC West, the NFC East. NFC East is what we've got on tap for you tonight. And so for the first time, we're bringing you all of these four teams, trying to break down every single player that matters for fantasy football this year. But before we get into it, make sure that you follow, like this video, and subscribe. Comment down below with all of your thoughts about the atrocious takes that we're going to give you for the next 30 to 40 minutes. Make sure you follow us on X at Cody Smith TFDR, at Trophy Chase TFDR. And Chase, bring us into the Dallas Cowboys, starting off the NFC East.
Yes, staying in the East here. So we're going to kick off things with an offense that lost its offensive coordinator, did gain some additional weapons here in the offense, lost a couple too. So some changes from last year. But we have Dak Prescott kicking off the quarterback room. And I'm just going to kind of run through here. You know, we have Dak, Tony Pollard, CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup, Jake Ferguson is kind of like the core of that offense. Dak Prescott has had his moments in his career where he is his flash potential, for fantasy purposes. But for the most part, without his legs, he's probably just going to be a high-end QB2, back-end QB1, best case scenario with a, change in this offensive scheme. Where are you at on Dak right now?
I think he's a little bit undervalued. I think we're tanking him down a little bit too far, especially with trying to throw up rookies like Bryce Young, like CJ Stroud over him. I still think on a year-to-year basis, Dak Prescott is easily above those guys and where I would project him to finish this year. I do think his legs are a little bit shot, but I think there's more than what people are thinking. I think he can still provide that 300-yard floor, which is a lot for fantasy football. And if he does that and passes with the efficiency that he has shown before, obviously he had a little bit of a down year last year, but I think he can give a little bit of a bounce back. Obviously he's got another great wide receiver in Brandon Cooks, who is a little bit older, but it's a very good wide receiver too that this team needed. I think Dak's a little bit undervalued. And so I think if he should be in that probably 12 to 15 range, I think he lands right in there, but I think he could go all the way up to a quarterback 7, quarterback 8 if he has a really good year.
Yeah, when you look at the names that you could think would finish in front of him: Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, Burrow, Herbert, T-Law, Lamar, Fields probably will. And then, maybe Danny Dimes sneaks in there, maybe Aaron Rodgers in there. You're talking 9, 10, 11 is really where he's at. He can easily crack back in QB1 numbers if that offense is remotely efficient and effective. We'll see how things change with a new scheme there, but I'm still in I'm still in on Dak. I do think that he should be valued over those rookies like Bryce Young. Even Kyler Murray right now. It's hard for me to take Kyler over him. CJ Stroud shouldn't be in front. So I do like myself some Dak, but it's not a guy I'm super excited to have him as my QB1.
It's just unfortunate because I don't think at this point anymore in his career that he doesn't provide the upside. He's never going to get to a top 8 quarterback in Dynasty. He's never going to get to that again. I think that's just kind of baked into his value right now, and I think that's why you do see the rookies over him, is because they do have the opportunity to take that league, to take those next steps. Dax is just going to be what he's going to be for the rest of his career. Can he be the next Kirk Cousins, though? And does that provide more floor value than what I think those rookies provide an upside? I think that does, and so I'd still be taking him. I don't know if I'm taking him over him just because of market consensus value, but if I had to provide a true personal ranking, I do think I'd have Dak over those guys because I know what he's going to give me year over year. I don't think there's any jeopardy of him getting replaced in the next years. There's already conversations about him talking about an extension with the Dallas Cowboys. I think that's more of just to provide cap room for them in the next coming years, but he's going to be the future of the Dallas Cowboys unless an absolute Matt Ryan type of explosion happens to him. So I don't have any fears with Dak Prescott being anything else than a high-end quarterback too.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. And he did get some upgraded weapons here. He does have CeeDee Lamb, of course. Did get Brandon Cooks this offseason, as well as hopefully healthy Michael Gallup being the number 3 on that offense is what you presume. I like those receivers. CeeDee Lamb, I'm comfortable starting. Brandon Cooks, and I'd say if like as a flex option in redraft, I'd be okay starting Brandon Cooks. I just don't know how consistent again this passing game is going to be beyond the first couple options. So we'll see what that actually kind of nets him in terms of fantasy production. But yeah, if he's a flex play, I'm good with that. Gallup, I'm okay with best ball, but I don't want to start him in a lineup.
Yeah, I think that's where we've really seen the shift. Is Gallup was kind of the guy that we were looking at last year before the injury happened, of like he could probably be that flex guy. I think Brandon Cooks really steps in and takes that role from him. I'm excited to see what Michael Gallup can do in a second year from the injury, but I don't think that we're really going to see anything more than just a wide receiver 3 role that's going to provide maybe 1 or 2 games that you actually want to start him, but you'll never know when it is. Best ball only. Brandon Cooks is really the only one here that I want to roster and lineup. Jalen Tolbert, Devontae Turpin, Jalen Brooks, anybody else that doesn't matter at all. So no, I'm not rostering any of those guys anywhere.
Yeah, no, I'm with you right there. I'll keep with the pass catchers and we'll go into the running back situation. So pass catchers, Jake Ferguson sounds like he's going to be the guy. He's going to be the tight end this year. They had hopes for Luke Schoonmaker. And so they had hopes for him, and they did draft him in the second round, but he was hurt. So the biggest thing is for tight end, it's really hard to ramp up and just like be super effective and efficient early on in your career when you're still trying to learn the adjustments to the position as you transition from college to the NFL. So not only has he missed those valuable reps, now you're going into the year, like there's no way that Jake Ferguson is just going to give up the position. I think Peyton Hendershot as well, is probably strongly in there, but maybe next year we can see a little bit from Schoon and see if he can actually crack tight end 1, tight end 2 in this offense. But are you interested in starting Jake Ferguson in lineup leagues? Where are you at with Jake right now?
I'm really interested in Jake Ferguson. Obviously, I was a little bit intrigued by the second round pick. I mean, that's a lot higher than a lot of people thought he would go, of Luke Schoonmaker. But it does seem like his time has ran out in preseason to really learn this offense. They're going to give it over to the vet, give it to the proven guy, as he showed last year, and that is Jake Ferguson. Obviously, Peyton Hendershot was in there for a little bit of time. It does sound like Jake has taken over this role during the preseason. And if we look at this Dallas Cowboys offense, they have heavily used the tight end. Dalton Schultz, we don't think he's anything special, has posted overall over the course of the year, not in points per game, he's posted a 12, 3, and 11 points per game, or an overall finish in the last 3 years. 3 top 12 finishes at the tight end position from a guy that we don't even think is all that overly talented. He's just the guy who's in the offense and serves the scheme role. Yeah. Obviously, it's not the same system, but I think this offense is going to operate fairly similarly, even though they got rid of their offensive coordinator. I just don't think that really him and Mike McCarthy gelled well together on a personal level. He's bringing in his own guy in Matt Schottenheimer right now and Mike McCarthy. And so I think that Jake Ferguson has a really good shot to be a top 12, it's probably not going to matter overly for this role because it is the tight end position. And what is the difference between tight end 6 and tight end 20? It's really not that different, but I think he can really be one of those tight ends that just falls into a back half of the top 12 tight end for this year.
Yep, give me some Fergie and some best ball. I don't know if I really want to start him in lineup, just because I think there will be some inconsistencies. But yeah, I mean, if you have to bye week type of thing in redraft, I'm all for it. But yeah, I would love me some Jake Ferguson in best ball. Moving on to that. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, moving into the running back position, this is one of the most intriguing running back rooms in all of the NFL, in my opinion, because it is Tony Pollard, and then who knows what the fuck else, honestly, at this point. It's Malik Davis, it's Ronald Jones, it's Deuce Vaughn, it's Rico Dowdle. I mean, all of these guys have a legitimate role to be the RB2. We know what Tony Pollard is. We know he's pretty much going to be fine coming off the injury. We don't expect any dip in efficiency from him coming off of that broken ankle because he suffered it so early in the season. He's had plenty of time to recover. Tony Pollard will be the one, but who in your mind, Chase, will be the 2 here?
I mean, it sounds like it's going to be Malik Davis, but like Rico Dowdle and Deuce Vaughn are the ones that have an opportunity over the next few weeks to actually earn reps. I do think that the RB2 position on this offense is up for grabs. The problem with Deuce Vaughn is his size. Like what they're looking for is a body to fill that Zeke role. And that's where Malik Davis, Rojo, and Dowd will come in versus what Deuce Vaughn can do. I think Vaughn will have a role in this offense, but I think opportunity is going to be very limited. So starting wise, I don't want him in lineup leagues. And in best ball, like really with best ball, that's where I'm at. I think having a depth piece, like in a deep, 32 man, 35 man roster, I'd be okay having, and maybe 25. It's just tough. Like you're talking about, I think limited opportunities, like 5 to 7 a game is what I think Deuce Vaughn will have, but he can smash with those. Maybe he earns more.
I think he's definitely rosterable, no matter what. Just because I think that if there's any injury, he steps into that next role, and it's a high leverage role for him. And so I think that if you're going to roster any of these running backs, he's shown through just his production. Like I'm not going to discount him just because of the size profile that he has. If he's even the 3 on this team, I think he's rosterable pretty much everywhere because of the role that he could step into. I think that he would serve basically as a replacement Tony Pollard, because Malik Davis can't serve that role. Rico Dowdle can't serve that role. Ronald Jones can't serve that role. The only one that's there that could possibly serve it, and we'd have to see if he can maintain that role and actually be able to perform well in it, because we haven't seen that type of a size profile ever do it. But the only one that I think could actually do it is Deuce Vaughn. And so I think he is rosterable everywhere. I don't him everywhere. I do think he's the RB3 though. And then I do think Malik Davis is the 2. I know Rico Dowdle showed out really well in preseason week 1, but I need to see a little bit more from him. I think they trust Malik Davis a little bit more. We'll see if that performs and how these shake out throughout the year. Ronald Jones, unfortunately, with the 2-game suspension, even though it seems like it's a little bit shady. Why is it not a 6-game suspension and it's only a 2-game suspension? Doesn't really matter because he's still suspended for 2 games. So I think that kind of puts him on the outside looking in for this team. I think he could actually be a cut casualty at whenever this team has to trim down to 53 just because he is suspended. Outside of that, I don't think there's really anything else really to talk about the running back position for here, unless you got anything else, Chase.
No, I'm with you. I'm just going to switch over here. I think Rojo could be a cut candidate, especially if Rico and Malik Davis can prove that they don't need anybody else. So, yeah, right, with you right there. So let's move on to the New York Football Giants. And I'm just going to start with the quarterback position here because this is one that I've been pumping all off season. Absolutely love him. I think there's tremendous upside for Daniel Jones, and he just got his contract situation figured out, another year with this offense. And I'm super bullish on Daniel Jones. Like this could be a year where he cracks, he actually improves his dynasty value, because so far he's shown he could finish up there, but can he stay there consistently?
All right. So in the league that I'm looking at right now, where I just pulled up Daniel Jones finished the season as QB9 over the course of the season. Where do you think that Daniel Jones can finish over the course of the season if everything goes right, Chase? Everything goes right. Give me your high upside level for Daniel Jones and what he could possibly be.
You want to talk ceiling?
I want to talk ceiling.
He's top 5, man. I'll go hot takey. Like he can be top 5 this year. Like you're talking about a guy who had 700 yards on the ground. Like, if this offense has any pass catchers at all, if he improves as a passer in this offense at all, with Hodgins another year there, Slayton, I know they added Paris Campbell, Darren Waller, we'll get into in a little bit here, but like these are like, it's a massive upgrade over what they have. Might not sound like a lot, but it is. Like they brought in Jalen Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson should come back from injury at some point. Sterling Shepard's back. Like they have enough pieces on this team that if some of them are healthy, I think Daniel Jones could be top 5.
So last year it was 3,200 passing yards. The issue was 15 touchdowns only, but then 700 rushing yards. Let's say he hits 700 rushing yards. It ups that passing rate from 3,200 yards to 4,000 yards. Who does that remind you of? That's Josh Allen freaking numbers right there. That is close to Josh Allen numbers. If he could actually elevate his passing game to that level, do I expect both of those things to happen in the same year? No, because I think he was rushing more because he didn't have the passing weapons. So I think there's a little bit of a balance there, but do I think he can be easily like that number 5 that you were talking about? I think he would literally be the 5th quarterback overall this year. I think that is very well within his outcomes. I think that honestly putting him top 15 is almost a lock. If he's going to run for 500, 600 yards, it's almost a lock that he is a top 15 quarterback, and he is being mistreated in my opinion. He's seen a little bit of a gradual rise throughout the offseason as people have kind of looked into the stats. They've gotten rid of Daniel Jones sucks. It was an awful contract to give him. I don't care if it was an awful contract to give him. He's still a good fantasy quarterback, and that's all that I care about at the end of the day.
it takes time to develop these guys. He had a really crappy situation with Joe Judge. Like, he's finally has himself a head coach that believes in him and his ability. Like, I'm super bullish on Daniel Jones in redraft and in dynasty. Like, that's a dude I think that you can see a big time rise this season. And that's a team I'm watching out for next offseason or maybe in season trade. You want to talk about a team that needs themselves a wide receiver one, get him his, Stephon Diggs. Watch out for the, New York Football Giants to try and get somebody in the next year here. But anyways, because right now their pass catchers are Isaiah Hodgins, Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt, Cole Beasley. Like, you have to list all of them because, like, 3 of these guys are going to get some catches. Maybe all of them get catches. You just don't know which weeks, how it's going to work out, how it's going to pan out. I don't want to start any of them, but I want some in best ball.
Yeah, I love how you typically have like an X, a Z, and a slot wide receiver that are listed out here. But truthfully, the Giants only have an X in Isaiah Hodgins, and then the rest of them are all slot wide receivers.
Yeah. They brought in 7 slots. They have 7 slots with Slayton, Campbell, Hyatt, Wan'Dale, Shepard, Beasley, Jamison Crowder. And I mean, like, if you really want to go any deeper, like, we have David Sills as well. So, like, this whole team is a bunch of slots.
It is just an absolute jumbled mess. If you had to give your opinion right now, are you looking at it as Paris Campbell being the one, Jalen Hyatt maybe coming in the middle of the season, Sterling Shepard if he's healthy? I mean, like, I'm listing off 3 guys right here. I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson, Cole Beasley's the vet. I mean, he's probably the most proven vet out of all of these guys that has actually stayed healthy. If you had to pick one, which one would be your slot wide receiver one for this team?
My slot wide receiver one, Darius Slayton. I think Darius Slayton's getting kind of.
Is he a slot?
I think so. I mean, I technically, like, I guess he's the number 2, like, outside of Isaiah Hodgins. I think he's the other guy. Maybe, I guess you'd say Paris Campbell if he's healthy. Then I think the way it's listed right here, like, those are the 3 you want in best ball. Like, sure, Hyatt just because he's a rookie. Wan'Dale, I think people are still going to take a dart on. He was a 2nd round wide receiver last year, so I'm happy to just have him in dynasty, but. Single season, like, I just don't care. Like, if they start to pop or if they get opportunity, sure, that's a waiver pickup at that point. But I have zero interest in trying to get them. For the most part, it's all best ball darts. I don't want to start any one of these pass catchers besides one, Darren Waller.
Exactly where I was going to go. The one receiving option that you actually do care about in this offense seems to be, from all reports and beat reports coming out of camp, it is Darren Waller, and that's the only one that Daniel Jones cares about. Either Darren Waller is the receiving option number 1 for this team. I mean, I would put it as a negative, like a minus 200 bet that Darren Waller will lead this team in targets this year.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Darren Waller's definitely going to lead the team in targets this year. So, I mean, maybe Saquon, but it's probably going to be Darren Waller. I think by a wide margin, he's going to do some good things this year. I know he's one that you've hyped up quite a bit, talking about him being a top, getting back into that top 5, top 4 conversation, because he was up there. Like, he was the one producing up there with Kelsey at, for those couple seasons. Obviously injury, the Raiders happened. And so, like, that's kind of life. But yeah, I mean, if he stays healthy, and he has every opportunity to be a top 4 option, top 3 option, really, I would say, in at least a single season format.
For sure. Absolutely love Darren Waller. I think he can produce that. I legitimately think a top 2 tight end overall finish is within his possible outcomes. But let's go into the running backs, where another guy who might have a running back 2 overall outcome in Saquon Barkley is back with the team. I don't believe that there's any bad blood between these two anymore. If you want to say that he might like just kind of cash it in at the end of the season, I don't know. He's going to be there and playing for his team. He has playoff incentives to eliminate that factor as well. So he can't just sit out at the end of the season if he has that nagging injury. Has to hit his incentives to get them to the playoffs to even cash them in. Saquon, and do you even want anybody else in this offense? Matt Breida is 33 years old, it feels like at this point. Eric Gray's the rookie, who I think is the most upside to fill into that role if something were to happen. But I think this is Saquon and nobody else, man. I think we're going back to one of the true workhorse roles in this system and in this offense with Saquon Barkley, one of the few that we have remaining.
Yeah, I think if I wanted to roster anyone behind Saquon, it's going to be Eric Gray, because I feel the same way. Drafted, brought him in, kind of fits what they're looking to do a little bit. So I think Eric Gray is worth a late dart kind of situation. But again, handcuff scenario, you're not hoping for anything out of him. Like, you're not getting any points out of him unless something happens to Saquon. Saquon's incentives, like with the contract that he signed, they want him to be better than his rookie year. That is what his incentives are. And I know it doesn't seem like it's a lot of money that he gets bonuses on, but it's enough money that, like, they put that in there for a reason. Like, they're going to give him the opportunity to hit those incentives. It's not like they just put it in there just for fun. And now they're just gonna be like, yeah, you know what? We're just going to give him, 10 rushes a game and 3 targets. Like, that's not going to happen. They're going to feed him and give him that chance. So if he stays healthy, yeah, like, you're talking about RB1, RB2 overall season this year, and in Dynasty, like, because of his age and his skill set, like, I won't say generational, but like, people think of him as a top talent in the league. You could see him getting another contract, you'd hope, from running backs if he does smash.
Another 1 year one. Yeah, for sure. But before we get off the New York Giants here, any interest in the backup quarterbacks of Tyrod Taylor or Danny DeVito?
Danny DeVito. No, I don't want him. I have no interest in them at all. I think it's kind of worth moving on. Yeah, Tyrod would be the one you pick up should something happen, because Tyrod's always found a way to perform when he's gotten on the field. But unfortunately for him, I think he's buried, and barring injury, like, that's the only reason I'd want to pick him up. So I am happy just moving on. Let's dive into the Philadelphia Eagles. So right now we have the biggest quarterback riser from this offseason. Jalen Hurts went from a guy that people really had questions about going into last year to now pretty much consensus QB3 overall.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it on our last episode on the AFC East show, where we were saying Josh Allen is the locked-in quarterback number 2, and I think a lot of people would actually have contention with that. I think a lot of people would actually say that Jalen Hurts should be the quarterback 2 in Dynasty, maybe even in redraft, and I'd have words to pick with that. I don't think after one season of what we saw last year that I would put him up there yet. I think the historical production of Josh Allen would make me lean that it is still Josh Allen, but I think Jalen Hurts has a very close, race with all of these top 3. I don't think any of them are that far apart with him, Josh Allen, or Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, and while I agree that, I have Allen as QB2 as well, I don't think the separation from Mahomes to Allen is that far, and I don't think the separation from Allen to Hurts is that far. I feel like they're all 3 in the same tier, I would say. There is going to be a little bit of a value difference between the 3 for whatever reason, just because that's how Dynasty is. I mean, we get it, the Patrick Mahomes effect. But yeah, I love me some Jalen Hurts. This offense is going to be very concentrated. You got A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, and then in the running back room, you have, an upgrade, I guess, and with DeAndre Swift, and then you have Rashad Penny, Kenneth Gainwell, and some depth there. But, like, this is a very consolidated offense. I mean, you talked about it in one of our shows and in the podcast. Like, there is only, really targets to 3 wide receivers or 4 wide receivers total, like, the entire year, where most targets at least go to like 7 or 8 deep in terms of the wide receiver room.
Yeah, legitimately, all of these wide receivers played all 17 games. I looked back and I was like, where was Greg Ward? Like, is Pro Sports Reference like messing me up right now? Like, where was Greg Ward? Like, where are his targets? There were none. It was only A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Quez Watkins, and Zach Pascal. And then your obvious replacement for Zach Pascal this year is Olamide Zaccheaus. So there was only targets to 4 wide receivers. If you want to talk about a concentrated offense, this is the prime example of a concentrated offense. It is A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, and that's it. I don't want anybody else. I don't even want I don't want DeAndre Swift as a pass catcher. I don't want, obviously not Rashad Penny as a pass catcher. I don't want anything else other than those 3 to catch passes in this offense, or I'm not at least expecting them to. And that's my problem with DeAndre Swift. I don't actually think he's any better than Miles Sanders was last year. I think they're basically the same exact running back. Honestly, might be a little bit of a down tier to DeAndre Swift, especially as you have Rashad Penny here to manage up the tackle roles, because that is not DeAndre Swift's game. He is not going to be a plotter who runs between the tackles. DeAndre Swift bounces every single thing that he sees. If he sees a gap, he's going to bounce it outside of it and think that he can hit the outside and turn it up the field. And guess what? It's the NFL. He can't. And so, like, that's the problem that they had with him in Detroit, and it's probably going to be the same problem that they have with him in Philadelphia as well. I think this is a 3-headed running back room, but the wide receiving options, the only ones you care about are A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert. It's real cut and dry here.
Yeah, those are all lineup or best ball. You want those options. I will take Quez Watkins in best ball personally because I think he has the
End
home
of the
run
roster
ability.
guy.
Yeah, like that's it. But like he has home run ability, and that's truly what it comes down to. Is like he can do big things with limited opportunity. But I do not want him in lineup. Now I feel a little bit differently about the running back room. I am with you. The knock on Swift coming out of college was the fact that he bounced everything. His vision wasn't really there in between the tackles, and he just wanted to move everything outside. That was always the issue with him, and it still is. So I am with you in that sense, but I do think he's going to have some sort of passing down work. I do think that they are going to have him fit in this offense well, but I do think it's going to be similar to what he did in Detroit, where Rashad Penny's going to take those in between the tackles types of carries, and DeAndre Swift will have kind of those higher leverage outside, maybe some dump off passing work. I mean, DeAndre Swift was not bad. Like when you really look at it in points per game perspective, like he was a top 15 running back every year. I think he cracked top 12 at one season as well. So like he did do efficient and very good things when he was available. Health is the key. And like you said, he's just not going to have, like, if he does start screwing up, like he can get put in the doghouse as we saw in Detroit. I don't think he'll get put in the doghouse as much here in Philly. I think he'll get a little bit more run. And I do think he is similar to Miles Sanders. So I do like that kind of comp of similar of Sanders from last year, but maybe just not as much work on the ground.
The only issue that I have is you're looking at 65 total targets to the running back position last year.
Yep.
And DeAndre Swift was in an offense that passed the ball to the running back, I think like 110 times last year, where he was getting 70 plus targets himself in only playing like 12 or 13 games, I think last year. That's where I have the issue, is because Jalen Hurts and this offense haven't shown that they can pass to the running back. Maybe with DeAndre Swift coming in, it'll get a little bit better, but I don't see him having anything more than like 55 targets. And I think that severely limits his upside from what he was showing in Detroit.
Yeah, no, if he is only getting 55 targets, that's going to be a problem for sure for Swift. I think he's going to be just okay at that point. But I think they're going to figure out a way to use him a little bit more than what they used the running back last year. I know Miles Sanders, like they wanted him to be used as a pass catching back in the past, but like that just really wasn't working out for him. I think he had one good season his rookie year, and after that, he just wasn't very effective. So I don't know his proficiency versus DeAndre Swift's, if that's going to be the big difference. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the offense. AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert. I'd say Swift and Penny in best ball, or if you're like playing a zero hero RB type of build, I'd be okay taking Swift or Penny. I think they're going to get touches, at some way, shape, or form, and you'll know probably when to start them or how it's going to look early on, and you can kind of figure it out from there.
I've been a Kenny Gainwell hater by all means, and I don't think that he should even be rostered. However, you want to know who the target leader was from the backfield last year? Kenneth Gainwell with 29 targets compared to Miles Sanders 26.
Yeah, it's gross, man. Like, and if you look at Sanders' past, I think like he said, he only got like 60 targets in the years prior to that. So, and that's best case scenario. So it just makes me wonder what their purpose is. Like they traded for Swift, and so I feel like they're going to figure out a way to use him, because really that's what his specialty would be in an offense. Like if you can get him to catch passes, you're utilizing him in an effective way. So that's kind of the hope, but it is a hope. If he's getting that kind of work, that's a problem.
Definitely. And if you want to roster a backup or two backups in different positions, Marcus Mariota for a high leverage backup position at quarterback, if you want to roster him, I guess. I don't think anything great is going to happen if you do, though. I think there's other backups that I would rather roster. Any interest in any deep tight end best ball premiums, 2.0, Dan Arnold, Grant Calcaterras? I'm not rostering any of them at this point.
Not rostering any of them. The only reason that they're going to have any value is if Dallas Goedert goes down.
Exactly. We can move on then.
All right, so let's get into the Washington Commanders. I think it's still going to be their name. We'll see what happens. I think they're going to change it at some point. But yes, we have Sam Howell at quarterback. It sounds like he is the quarterback one. You do have Jacoby Brissett there, which could be like a high leverage. I don't want to say high leverage because of this offense, but a decent backup to roster, I guess, who might actually have a chance of getting in at some point. But it's going to be B-Rob and Gibby in the backfield. And this is really Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuels in the passing game with whatever at wide or tight end. So I mean, it's kind of a little iffy there. What do you think of this offense as a whole from just a fantasy perspective?
I feel like it projects to be another like bottom 10 fantasy projected producing season for these guys. I mean, Sam Howell, I loved the prospect coming out, and then he gets buried in the draft. So maybe I think he does have a little bit more upside, because I think people do underestimate what his rushing upside is, because I do think there is a little bit of like a 300-yard floor that he could have that people aren't really putting into his game. But just what does he do as a passer? I don't hate the weapons though here. I think we just look at him, and we've seen from the past, we've seen Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineken kind of fail with these guys, but over every year, I mean, Terry McLaurin is a very, very good wide receiver. We've just never seen him with a quarterback that could actually elevate his skills. Jahan Dotson had very good stretches last year. We can see if he makes a year two jump. Curtis Samuel just is what he is. He's just kind of that gadget hybrid role guy who serves his purpose every once in a while. I don't have any interest in any of these other wide receivers, though. Byron Pringle chips is not anything that I want to roster. Dimey Brown, Dax Smith. I mean, we're getting to guys that I don't even know on the second string. Don't want any of them there. But I think there is a little bit of intrigue, though, with the running back position and who we think is actually the better fantasy producer for this year.
I feel like this offense as a whole really comes down to Eric Bieniemy. Like, I think we're going to find out if Eric Bieniemy is just a good offensive coordinator or if he's a great offensive coordinator. If he can be an offensive mind, like Andy Reid, where he's able to adapt with the position players and the players that he does have on his roster, I'd be very excited to see, this team improve. I don't think they'll be top 10, but I think you can see a noticeable enough improvement where they're like, wow, like look what they did with a 5th-round quarterback, a gunshot wounded running back, an outcast in Gibson, and then like really Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson are like really the two pieces there. Like that's kind of it, like based on draft capital and what we've seen McLaurin do in the NFL. So yeah, I'm really interested in this offense. I'm kind of invested in it to see what happens. But yeah, the really the only ones I'm actually interested in are Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson at wide receiver. And then you mentioned the running back room. Like Brian Robinson's going to get his 20 touches. It's just going to happen. I want to see how they're using Antonio Gibson. Can he be a Jerick McKinnon?
JD McKissick is the name that you're purposely, you're looking for the Jerick McKinnon of the Kansas City Chiefs past, and that's what you're looking for. He was also going to take over what used to be the JD McKissick role. I mean, he's not here. It looks like, I don't know if he's even going to play football anymore. Everybody's kind of looking for him to be rostered, but he's dealing with a neck injury that I think is similar to what was the Seattle Seahawks running back that unfortunately got Chris Carson, that type of a neck injury. So I don't know if he's even going to be playing football anymore. I don't think he's going to be coming back to this team, even if he does. I think Antonio Gibson can serve that role out of the backfield and really be catching pretty much like 90% of the running back passes. So I am wheels up on Antonio Gibson if this team is actually good. I do think that Brian Robinson, I don't know about 20 touches, but I think more like 15. And then maybe Antonio Gibson can take like those 10 rushes and then 5 receptions and be kind of that burst playmaker type of guy. It doesn't serve great for him, but I think he does serve a better role overall than Brian Robinson. I have more upside hope for Antonio Gibson this year than I do Brian Robinson. I don't know if you agree. And then Chris Rod is another guy I'll just roster because he's the next guy up.
Yeah, exactly. I think Chris Rod is worth rostering because of that exact reason. You're right. B-Rob's more around that 15 touch mark, but you've seen him go 20 for 80 and no touchdowns, like 4 yards, maybe 3 yards a carry, 20 for 60 type of games. I really am only invested in Antonio Gibson. He has the home run ability if they do use him effectively and efficiently in the pass catching game. And it sounds like from all accounts, he is being used that way. He's talked about it in training camp of, finally being used the way he thought he was going to be when he came into the NFL. So I am excited for him because I was all in on Antonio Gibson. He had those foot injuries early on, and availability and health was an issue for him. So hopefully he can stay healthy and we can really see how electric he can be. Because we've seen him take screens and dump offs for 70 yards. Like we've seen him, take handoffs for 70 yards. Like he has that ability. We'll see how often they can get him open in space.
Yeah, and then going back to the quarterback real quick, you were talking about Jacoby Brissett being a high leverage. I think the better term for him is just he's one of the most serviceable backups that we see throughout the league. He's not going to be anything better than like a quarterback 2 if he does go in, but he'll probably just be a quarterback 2 because that's what we saw from him last year whenever he was in Cleveland. I think this situation looks pretty similar to last year's Cleveland offense. If you just look at the kind of weapons that they have outside of a true hammer, absolute running back one in Nick Chubb, the wide receivers and all of the weapons that he has looks very similar. The last thing that we do need to touch on here is the tight end room. It does look like Logan Thomas is on track to play week 1. Apparently, maybe. So he's at least being worked in. I don't know if I've ever seen week 1 put on the field, but I know he's practicing and working his way back. They're saying they're going to be cautious with him because he is an older vet. Obviously, he's had extensive health issues throughout all of his playing time, at least over the last couple of years. But outside of that, I mean, you have John Bates, Cole Turner, Curtis Hodges. It's not anything behind him. So if Logan Thomas is healthy, he's kind of like he's kind of like a discount Zach Ertz in that I still have some hope if he can actually just get on the field and serves this tight end 1 role.
Yeah, I think I'd be excited to see who actually emerges from this room. Logan Thomas in redraft, I think he would be a great late round dart, or trying to pick up one of these guys off of I guess waivers. If someone actually starts getting targets, I think that's really what it's going to come down to, is how do they utilize that tight end. But Logan Thomas has shown his fantasy prowess in the past. If he's healthy, if he's out there, I'm a little bit interested, like just a little bit, like not like, go out there and go get him kind of thing. But for this year, yeah, like he'd be a solid little dart. I think he's going to have a few games that we're going to be excited about.
Yeah, man. Last year was 14 games, 13 games started, 61 targets, 39 receptions, 323 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, unfortunately, this offense was just very bad last year, and he was dealing with health problems. John Bates was the next guy up with 22 targets, 14 catches, 108 yards. I mean, the tight end position just really wasn't used here. But we're bringing Eric Bieniemy, right? I mean, this is what is proven to be the Travis Kelce gold mine for the tight end position. I don't think that's going to be this year, because I think that offense is a little bit more refined to know that Travis Kelce is basically one of the best wide receivers in the league. He's not really a tight end. Like, you're not going to have Travis Kelce just go in line and just serve it. Like, he can, but he's not really going in line to just serve as like that left tackle blocker. He's not doing that. That's not his role. He is truly one of the best wide receivers in the league. He's just not labeled it and not paid like it. I don't think anybody here on this team is anywhere near Travis Kelce, so they won't strategize the offense around him like that. So expecting somebody to come out and be that, I think, is a little bit misguided. However, I do think somebody can be at least serviceable here. And if I had to take the bet, I'd still bet that it's Logan Thomas, barring health.
Yeah, I think that's why I brought up the Bieniemy factor. It's like, Andy Reid has made a living in the NFL because he was able to adapt with the pieces that he had. He has an offense, he has a style that he likes to use, but he was able to adapt with his pieces. If Bieniemy can do that, because you're right, like there's no one that's anywhere remotely close to Logan Thomas, nowhere that's or to Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah, sorry, I was reading Logan Thomas. And so, like, when you really look at that position, it's going to be, what can they do with Gibby? What can they do with McLaurin, Dotson? What else can they get out of Curtis Samuel, utilizing him in a different way? So I think that's kind of what I'm curious of more than I am the tight end room, because it was so limited in the past. And I do think that they will feature it to a point, but again, it's not so like targets are going to be earned in this offense. And I feel like McLaurin and Dotson are the two that are truly like worthwhile. I'd say cautiously say starting in a lineup league, but maybe as a flex option for Dotson. I liked him, but I just don't love him. So
I'm not the biggest Dotson guy either. I think he's more of like a Gabe Davis type. Where he's just going to have his games where he's going to catch the touchdowns. But Terry McLaurin's the one here, in my opinion, by far and away.
Yep, exactly. I think McLaurin and Gibby are the ones I'm really invested in. Sam Howell, I think, could have his opportunities, but for the most part, this is just a low dynasty value offense when you really look at it that way.
Yep, I could see everything going from what it is right now to next year. You've got a new owner who brought none of this in.
Yeah.
I kind of expect this team to absolutely implode and have everything new next year.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I feel like it's just a train wreck waiting to happen, but they managed to survive last year a little bit, win some games, stay out of that quarterback hunt.
Somehow,
this stock's dying over here, man.
I know all these Washington Commanders or whatever they're going to be called. They're dying over there too. It doesn't look all that great, man.
Oh, geez. All right, man. Anything else you want to touch on with this before I croak?
No,
block here?
let's get out of here before we keep dying in front of the people.
All right. Make sure you like this video, subscribe, comment down below. Let us know what you think of the NFC East and what your thoughts are on the fantasy impacts as well. So follow us on Twitter at Trophy Chase TFDR, at Cody Smith TFDR. So make sure you tap in there, and as well as the Destination Devy radio feed. We drop every Wednesday with the Overreaction podcast. And again, thank you so much for joining us here on the Fantasy Draft